Hey everybody, welcome back into another episode of the Dynasty Pros Devy Show. I am your host, Tommy Harvey, alongside SC Romero and Andy Pham. And tonight we are going to do a heat check, gauging temperature, gauging some temperatures on a few players that either we've gotten super high on or super down on lately. That is coming up next. All right, guys, we're nearing the end of the season here, and I know we all have different opinions on different guys here. Especially as the years going on, and there's some guys who have really caught fire this year and have really become major Devy assets, whereas there's also some guys who have almost completely fallen off the radar. So first first off tonight, we're going to start with our quarterback position. We have three guys here we're going to discuss. The first guy I want to bring up is Carson Beck. As far as a heat check, this guy has nuclear heat right now. He has jumped all the way up to my overall QB3 in my rankings. I think he has everything it takes to be an NFL franchise quarterback. You're looking at size. You're looking at ability to throw the ball. He can make all the throws. He limits mistakes, takes care of the ball, and he's actually fairly mobile. Even though a lot of people going into the season thought that's the area he would struggle in, he really hasn't. He's been able to extend plays with his legs, get outside the pocket and scramble. I'm actually really, really excited about him. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I could agree. Like, I think a reason why is because the offense looks less exciting than it did last year. Brock Bowers is the guy, but I don't feel they had the same running strength or even the passing weapons that they had. So Carson Beck really had to step in and become a natural leader and ensure the defense is still good. But I really like that he's taking the team to the national championship, it looks like. And he's doing that flawlessly almost. He's looking really great. He's not making some mistakes you would have expected him to do, stepping into that role for the SEC. And he's looking great, with uh, less amount of weapons than some of your other top quarterbacks, yet he's still performing at a high level in the SEC, which says a lot because some of the other top quarterbacks are performing pretty well, but they're not in the SEC. So to see a young man like him go out there and excel on all levels, like you had mentioned, I think it's a great thing, and he's definitely moving up those rankings.
Yeah, I would say as far as a temp check goes, I would say he's hot. I have him overall as quarterback 11. I think he's done everything right. He hasn't done anything wrong per se. And I think every week he just continues to look better and better, just climbs, every week. And I think what really helped him was when Brock Bowers was hurt and he was able to go out there and find other playmakers, get other players involved, and look like a really good quarterback. And I think that's going to bode well for next season.
Where would you guys have him in your rankings right now?
I have him 11th overall. And for the 25 class, he is quarterback 2.
For the did you say for the 24 class?
The 25 class, I have
25
him as
class.
quarterback 2. The 24 class, if he were to come out, I have him quarterback 4.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, you do have, obviously you got Caleb Williams, you got Drake May. Who do you have as your QB3 right now? JJ McCarthy?
Yeah, JJ.
Okay. That's fair. I personally have him as the overall QB3. And if he were to wait until next year, he'd be my QB1 for the 2025 class.
I think that's my overall QB9 right now. And then
Okay.
if he waited next year, I would have him going as QB2, but that's because I do think Shadir Sanders goes back, and he's going to be my QB1 if he ends up going back. So,
even with his back the way it is right now.
yeah, I mean, I think that's a reason why he stays, right? He gets that worked out in the off season, try to stretch it out and get it better and recover. And, Dion probably knows best ways to help make that happen, right? Even when he's at home. So I think next year he's going to go in and just look great.
Sure. Okay, the next guy we have on our list here, Kyle McCord out of Ohio State. To me, temperature for him is freezing cold. I don't think he's any more than an NFL backup quarterback at best. I don't think he has the. I don't think he has it up here. To be able to handle it. Like you go back to last year's team, which is basically the same receivers, minus Jackson Smith and Jigba, who didn't play much last year. So it's basically the same team, and the offense is not nearly as good. That's an indictment on Kyle McCord and his ability. I don't think he has a huge arm. I don't think he's really mobile. And then the fact that you go back and you look at these games he's playing in, and it's like, CJ Stroud was tearing it up with these same guys, but now McCord can't do anything.
Yeah, no, I mean, my favorite character in Mortal Kombat is Sub-Zero, so I think Sub-Zero is awesome. But in this case, we're gonna say it's horrible. So I'm gonna go even further than you. I mean, I think if you take away Marvin Harrison Jr. and just had Ubeka, we're not even going to see anything great. I mean, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the reason why he looks good. We talked about before, if he had Devin Brown in there, he's the more electric quarterback. He should have been the guy. Some of their wins, if they were statement wins, it was against who? Like you're not really excited about some of the big ones, and they just lost to Michigan here. At best for me, it's Baker Mayfield at best. And I think that's something that, he can go out there and he could maybe get it done. But I feel Baker, like, for example, with Tampa, you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin looking, those are two of your top wide receivers, arguably, as far as a dual threat there. And I don't think he's not going to go there and make anyone look good. He needs a wide receiver to make him look good. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, and he has the wide receivers, and and they're still not making him look good. I mean, they look good because they are good, but Kyle McCord is not looking good. You mentioned Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's at least able to get out and move. I don't see that from McCord at all.
Yeah, I have Kyle McCord. He's ice cold. I have him as quarterback 38 right now, and I think that's too high. I have him in the same range as Malik Murphy, DJU, Devin Brown, Jordan Travis. I just don't see any traits at the next level. I think, if anything, he's like a practice squad guy at best. He can't even be a good game manager with Ohio State in that weapon. So how are you expected to win at the next level?
Yeah, you mentioned Malik Murphy. Malik Murphy at least has tangible traits. Mobile, big, can really throw the ball well. And none of those are really Kyle McCord, And
now, is this a bigger indictment on Devin Brown that he couldn't beat out Kyle McCord?
No, I think it may be an indictment on Ryan Day, honestly. Is he being overly loyal to Kyle McCord, who everybody knows doesn't have the talent that Devin Brown has? And if so, I mean, that's coaching malpractice, right?
I think I said it to Andy on a tweet, or someone that tweeted about it. But I mean, they get Aaron Nolan in next year, right? So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what they do and if they go in with him. I mean, he's one of the top prospects coming in this freshman class. So will he go in there and get a start? And if so, I mean, he's already set up for success with the weapons they have.
See, the problem is if Ryan Day sticks around, it's going to be Kyle McCord again, and Devin Brown's probably transferring out at that point.
I mean, there's already two reports now that Ohio State has been looking into Malik Murphy and Cam Ward, for the transfer portal to possibly get them. So it's like you're obviously not high on the two guys that you have. You're not going to give the reins to a true freshman, Aaron Nolan. So are they going to go in the portal and just get a guy for a year? Maybe.
I mean, Cam Ward would be phenomenal there.
If
You
they
know,
got
you
him,
you give him Carnell Tate and Brandon Ennis and and uh, Jalen Ballard and all those types of
Jeremiah
guys.
Brown,
Yeah, exactly. Those guys. I think Cam Ward could be a Heisman contender if he goes there next year.
we might talk about him as QB1 if he goes to Ohio State, just because that.
Potentially,
Yeah, I
he
think
has
just
the
that
tools.
offense, kind of what you're seeing with Michael Penix right now in Washington. If he goes there, it's just lights up. Now the downfall is with Cam Ward. We saw him start slipping up at the end of the season, so that's gonna have to get coached up a little bit. And he's
He
got to
also
work
plays
on
for
that.
also playing for a bad team though. Let's
Yeah,
be
that's
real.
true,
Washington State's not good.
100%. And they'll have different weapons there, but those mistakes aren't I mean, they lost what 7 straight, I think. But those mistakes you can't make them in the Big Ten and expect big things in a program like Ohio State. They're getting you because it's like, you're going to be a winner, and we're going to make sure it happens, right? So
Yeah, but really, the Pac-12 is better than the Big Ten. You look at the teams that are in the Pac-12 right now. He's playing all the good teams that are going to the Pac-10 next year.
it's true.
So I mean, top to bottom, the Pac-12 is much better than what the Big Ten is. Big Ten has 3 teams, and then Iowa who can't score points. So I mean, I guess defensively, the Big Ten could potentially be better, but the problem is you don't know because they're playing Minnesota, they're playing Indiana, they're playing Illinois and Northwestern, and Rutgers, and playing against teams that aren't good. So how do you know that their defenses are good, or are they just playing crappy teams?
You say Nas electric on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, exactly. Just slow for the most part too.
Mm.
Last quarterback that I'm wanting to go over here is Dante Moore. He was kind of gifted the starting position at UCLA to go into the season, and then lost the starting job. Big time 5-star freshman coming in. I had, I, like everybody else, was really, really high on the guy. He had, obviously he has big time potential. But now temperature wise is really mild, almost chilly. Like it's, if you have a thermostat, the guy's, low 50s, right?
Yeah, he's pretty. I think it says something that he got the job back. I mean, the fact that they brought him back just shows that the other quarterbacks weren't good at all there either. So, I mean, I'm still excited to see him. He definitely dropped in my rankings though, because I had him in the top 10 overall. When the season began, and he's not even in there anymore. Is that a knock on him? I don't know, because the offense really didn't look any more exciting without him in it. So it's not like I saw, oh, you benched him for this. Yeah, that was the right move. It was more like I'd rather see Dante Moore get that full year, and we can see him progress and see what he's going to do developing wise, because now we have a gap there. And now the question is, well, what if he had that full year to, watch the film on his mistakes even further and try to build on that? So I still like him. I say he's just hot, because he's kind of in that realm of I'm not knocking him down all the way, because I think more so the coach just made a bad call as far as giving him the reins so early, but he did what he could and he got it back at the end. So there wasn't really anything to go off on to me.
I think with Dante Moore, he had a very long year. Like there were reports in spring camp where he had arm fatigue and balls were just floating on him. He had a good start with the non-con, but then once they got into conference play, once they hit Utah, he was a deer in headlights. And then what I didn't like last week when I was watching is he's standing flat-footed in the pocket. He's not even ready to escape, and his throws are getting tipped at the line. I'm just seeing a lot of bad traits forming at UCLA because what you're seeing now you didn't see in high school. And my best trait that I had for him was his experience, but he just looks lost.
Yeah, I'll jump in on Dante. It's one of those things. It's like everybody wants to see the freshmen play, but when they play and they don't play well right off the bat, everyone gets super nervous. And we forget these kids are like 18 years old, like 19 years old, like coming from high school. I don't care how advanced of a high school you played at, how good it was, what the competition was. It's still not college. It's still not major D1 football. You're gonna see those ups and downs. You got to see kids that come in. They don't have a whole year to learn, watch film. I mean, you just watching film, figuring those things out. Though, just the routine of stuff is so much more in college than it is in high school. And I don't even care how big of a high school you go to. There's very few that are going to be on that same level. So I still like him. I still think he's going to be good. I think you're going to see him drop and Devy, like kind of like SC just said, he's going to drop in rankings because he didn't come out and immediately perform. But I think we got to be careful there a little bit too. Is we see that our guys that didn't play jump him just because they didn't play. And I think you're going to see that. You're going to see some, maybe a Malachi Nelson that he was right next to, either right ahead or right behind. Does he jump ahead of him just because of the potential and he didn't play? So that's tough for me. It was a little bit of a mess at UCLA this year. I thought they'd have a little more together, like the other guy said, but it's not like the offense was like drastically better without him. So then you say like, okay, was it really him or is it everybody else?
Yeah. Is this one of those situations where you attempt to kind of buy low on him, considering, people may be kind of scared off of him?
I mean, depending on the price, I think he's going to drop. Like SC said, I don't think there's any way he doesn't drop in most people's rankings just because that was kind of an ugly season. Plus, then you go forward, you go like, okay, they weren't great this year. What does that mean next year for UCLA? Are they going to be any better? Like, what's going to happen there? So, I think that's always a tough call. But we always talk about this in Devy, man. This is freshman. Everywhere is hard to predict, but especially at quarterback, how these guys are going to react. Even the best of the best in high school, it's still a major change going right to college, especially no redshirt year and coming out and playing right away. I think it does make a difference. I wouldn't be out on this guy yet. I mean, we've seen some of these guys are 4 or 5 year guys now blowing up, like a Penix and a Bo Nix. Like he's got time to grow. Just because the guy's not, at the top of his game by the time he's 20 and a sophomore, I don't think that's any reason to write him off.
I agree. I mean, if you could buy low, I would, because the transfer portal is a real thing, right? And I think it's more of a UCLA coaching issue than it is him. I mean, Andy hit it on the money where you're seeing some bad traits develop. And to me, I mean, put him at Ohio State, put him at, I don't know, Florida even. I mean, I know they got Lagway coming in, but I mean, I just think there's different coaching opportunities that can be helped to help him improve. So, I mean, I think he's a great talent. He just has to be in the right coaching system.
My buy low would be, I would be in a C2C league. I would be comfortable offering probably a 4th round sub pick and a CFF asset. Is that good enough? Probably not. But I would try to buy low that way and hopes he transfers out because, there was talk at the beginning of the year that he was unhappy with the NIL deal and all the things that, he had to do that he didn't want to do. And then there's been some rumblings with him and Chip Kelly, and Chip Kelly's coming back. So I would buy in hopes that he transfers out and goes back to or go back to where he was initially committed to Oregon or even to his home state, Michigan State, something like that, and see what he does away from UCLA.
Speaking of Michigan State, what do you guys think is going to happen there? All three of their other quarterbacks have hit the transfer portal. Is it Aiden Childs?
I mean, what if it's Dante Moore? I think the coach knows Aiden Childs, but Dante Moore may be the better talent there, right? So, I mean, if there is some rumbling that he's unhappy, I'm trying to get a hold of him. I think you know what Aiden Childs is about because you had a full season with him, right? You saw him in practice, you saw those skills, so yeah, you know that's there. But if there is an opportunity to go get Dante Moore, I think you go do that first, or you try to go reach out and say, hey, are you interested in coming back or coming home? But I think Aiden Childs is likely it just because that connection. But I mean, if they're not picking up the phone, then they're doing something wrong.
Yeah, like on Thursday's episode with when I was talking to SC about it, that coach loves Aiden Childs, and Aiden Childs loves that coach. Like they are simpatico. So I think it is a no brainer that he's going to end up in East Lansing.
Well, we know it's not going to be Damian Martinez. He had a quote today or over the last, I think it may have been today or yesterday, saying he feels like he was lied to. So we know he's not transferring over there. So ain't got to worry about that one. Speaking of Damian Martinez, how about we get into some running backs here? We're not necessarily going to talk about Damian Martinez, but I've got 5 running backs here that I kind of have lumped together just because rankings wise, they probably are fairly close together. Mark Fletcher, Audric Estime, Amarian Hampton, Jaden Blue, and Trevor Etienne. What's your guys' kind of feel on these 5 guys?
Man, Fletcher, y'all know I'm high on Fletcher. He jumped up my rankings exponentially. He's someone that I feel he can get the full workload. I think Miami's just they have a good committee of running backs that are versatile and can do multiple things. But Fletcher, I think he could be a 3-down back. I mean, he looks great. He's my RB2 in the class right now behind Baxter, and I think we could just see some great things for him. The unfortunate part is Miami's offense may not look good as a whole. We saw Van Dyke entering the transfer portal, right? So if he's not there, does the next quarterback up make it look different? Is it going to be more of an explosive offense that I didn't see as much this season? But I think Fletcher looks great, and I think that the reins may be his next year. Eastame, I like him. He has the pro size. I think it was more a testament on Stanford just not having the tools he needed to find that success, because we saw him explode at the beginning of the season. He looked great, but then they got into some tougher competition, and I think that just showed how Stanford just had him and no one else really. So with that being said, I mean, he's not a necessary leader of the team. You can't rely on him like you would just say like a Derrick Henry, right? Or running back that you can just be like, you're the team and that's it. He's nothing like that, but he's someone that could go in there and get you the first down here and there. I don't think he'll be that lead back. Omarion Hampton looks great. Another running back that's rising. Was talking to someone earlier. They mentioned, or I had mentioned that Ollie Gordon. That could be that cute RB1 of next year's class. He had said Quinshon Junkins. Another person to talk about is Omarion Hampton. That RB1 in that next class, where it was ideally Nick Singleton, and then we had Junkins. Now we're seeing Singleton slip. We're seeing K-Tron get up there, but we're also seeing Omarion Hampton stepping up to the plate. He looks like a phenomenal runner, kind of almost a do-it-all runner, if you will. Jaden Blue, he took his opportunity, man, and he did what he had to do. He had to go out there and show, look, I am a good running back. Now the question will be is he going to stay there, or did he do enough to be like, I can go to – say if he goes to Georgia, why wouldn't that be something that they try to include just because of his electricity on what he could bring to the table? But we also know Texas does really good at building these running backs, so it could be him next year with a little bit of Baxter pepper in, and then we see Baxter finally take the reins when it's his time to come out. Trevor Etienne, to me, he's the better running back in Florida. He didn't do nothing all season to necessarily excite me to move him up or down my rankings. He was kind of just there where I had him. I currently have him at RB19 overall. He's nice, but Travis Etienne's better to me. He's not his brother or anything like that. So I think he's a good running back that can do some things for you, but I feel like he's going to be just a 3rd-down back. I don't think he's going to be anything that's a workhorse. You're not going to give him the full load there.
So of the 5, you would go Fletcher as your number 1, and then from what you're saying, you have Hampton as your number 2.
I might, man.
Of these 5 guys.
I might put Jadon Blue just in that one game because this is what I wanted to see out of him, and I finally got the chance to, right? So he showed me everything I wanted to see. So I might say Jadon Blue would be probably that one because I was like expected and he didn't disappoint, honestly. And then I'll put Mark Fletcher at that too. I love Fletcher, but I mean, to be real, it's a freshman. And what we just saw last year with Singleton, we can see it with Fletcher. I think he's good, but Jadon Blue did not disappoint. I thought he looked phenomenal when he was on the field. And he's someone that, is going to climb my rankings more than likely if he continues to have that success.
Am I right for saying that these 5 guys should kind of be lumped in together, though? Or am I flying off base there?
I think it's fine to have them grouped together. For me, just a personal preference, I have Fletcher probably a little bit lower, but they're in that tier. I can see that. But of the 5, I'm highest on Jadon Blue. I think he showed what we all hoped he would in his opportunity. And worst case, he's the 1A. But if he does transfer out, he did have an offer with Florida State. Benson leaves. Florida State, they do like to go in the portal. So he could go to Florida State. He was offered by Michigan. He had other offers. So he has opportunities to show out and then transfer out. So he's probably the guy I like the most in that list. The guy that I've fallen out of favor is Trevor Etienne, mainly for 2 things. I don't think he's consistent enough, and he can't beat out Montrell Johnson. But what I absolutely do not like about him is he is horrible at pass protection, and that is not going to fly at the next level. Every time I see him try to pass block, he is a liability back there.
Well, what bugs me about ETN is that it's very clear that Napier has a bias towards Montrell Johnson. Knowing him coming from his old school, Louisiana, it's very clear that Napier has a bias towards Johnson, to the fact that we don't get to see Etienne the way we should.
I'll jump in on about Jadon Blue. Are we 100% sure that Cedric Baxter is the guy next year and Jadon Blue doesn't come back and he's the number 1 at Texas? I mean, we saw it with Brooks this year. We thought, where's he going to come? They've shown that some of these guys that kind of get a late run end up getting the job. Could he win that job? Could Blue win that job at Texas? I actually think he could if he stayed. I think he could end up being the number 1, but we'll see if that ends up happening or not. Like you guys said, I thought I was really impressed. He was a guy everybody was super high on a couple of years ago. I think he's shown it. Estimated me, he fits that Notre Dame. He just fits that grinder mentality. I just don't know if I see him next level being more than like kind of a fullbacky. We need a couple hard yards, hand it to him, let it pound it ahead. But being all the time back, I don't know. I just don't know if I see it with him. I mean, he's a really good college running back, but I just don't know if he's got enough of that wiggle, enough of that burst to make people miss at the next level, or if he's kind of that, hey, he can make a roster, he can be usable, but is he going to be an every down starter? No. I have a lot of questions about him as far as that is concerned next level.
With Estimate, do you see him being more as like an Alfred Morris type?
Yeah, it feels like he's going to be that like big fullback like type of guy where they're like, oh, okay, hey, like let's put him in the power I when we go big packages and hand it off to him and do those types of things where he's grinding out some hard yards. And if he, just like Alfred Morris when he did it, you end up on the right team where all they want to do is pound the rock because they're worried about turning it over. Could he end up on a team where they just give him the ball a million times and he pounds out 3.5 yards per carry for a whole season? It's definitely possible.
Sounds perfect for the Ravens.
Well, see, again, it's all I feel like so many times it ends up landing spots. I mean, a guy like him, I think on the Ravens could be really good. But you put him on a few other teams, I'm like, man, would he just completely be useless on some other teams. So I think that makes the difference too. I liked Hampton. I really was surprised what he did this year for North Carolina. I thought he impressed me. He was better than I thought he would be. Like I said, Fletcher, Miami, we don't know what's going on there. They're a little bit of a mess, but he looked good. Etienne, I'm a little worried that he didn't easily win that job. So that's got me worried about him at the next level. Again, is he got talent? Yes, but is he a standout back? I'm not sure on that one. So that one's got me. But Blue is definitely the guy that interests me the most. And whether that means he stays at Texas and wins the job at Texas, which I actually think is a possibility, or whether he transfers out to, like Andy said, someone like a Florida State or something like that, would be interesting to see.
Next year is the big year for Blue, being draft eligible after next year. So if he were to stay at Texas, I think he would have to win the job in order for him to want to stay there. Otherwise, like you said, Florida State would be a great spot for him. Losing Benson, and the fact that he is kind of that home run hitter type of running back, so him going to a different spot with next year being his draft eligible year, that's a big deal for him.
With Blue, the funny thing is, I think we were kind of in consensus that he might be the top guy in this list, but he also may be the cheapest one for you to go out there and try to acquire, just because he hasn't had that full season. And someone could be like, okay, it was a one-time wonder, so you could possibly go out there in your C2C leagues to try to get him, maybe your CFFs, right? That you can go out there and build up on him, and even in your Devy leagues. I think he's somewhere where we saw the other running backs go and have a lot of production, so people may be higher on them than they were on Blue, and they may be afraid that, oh, Baxter's there. But if he goes to Florida State, that's money. Especially with Benson gone, that's going to be a money team for him. So the possibility is there, and you might want to try to go get him before he possibly says, hey, I'm entering that transfer portal.
Yeah, well, speaking of Florida State, they're going to have to do something with their quarterback position. Whether that's that's going to have to be bringing in some type of transfer guy. Again, a Cam Ward, Malik Murphy, something like that would be perfect for them.
Well, if I'm Texas, I'm selling Blue on that. We had Bijan Robinson, we had Roshan Johnson. Roshan played his role, still was a high draft pick, is making it in the NFL, has a shot to be a starter on a team here in the next year or two. I'm selling him on that. Even if we play Baxter, even if we play both you guys, if you perform well and do what you need to, you could still be a fairly decent draft pick and make the NFL. You don't have to necessarily be the man all by yourself. So if I'm Texas, that's what I'm selling. I'm like, hey, we've been putting guys in the pros, guys that weren't starting are still playing significant roles on NFL teams. That's what I'm doing if I'm Texas, because I want to keep him. I mean, obviously, you don't want Cedric Baxter going anywhere, but I need to look at the updated redshirt rules. But I'm not sure if Baxter played enough games to not be able to technically count this as a redshirt year. So he might still be.
I don't think that necessarily matters. I don't know
if it matters anymore. I know it used to be amount of games. It used to be like play percentage, but I think they've changed that. So I think he technically could take this as a redshirt year, which means even if he plays a backup role next year, he's a redshirt freshman. I mean, it's not like he's a backup as a junior.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't think it necessarily matters. You're not expecting him to stay past 3 years anyways.
Yeah.
I think the only way Jadon Blue stays is if Jonathan Brooks leaves for the NFL. I think if Jonathan Brooks comes back, Texas will give Brooks all the opportunities when he's healthy. And so I think that's going to be the telling thing. If Brooks declares, Blue's got a good chance of coming back and being at 1A. But if Brooks wants to come back, because he is only a redshirt sophomore, if he chooses to come back, Blue's gone.
That's a good point. I wasn't thinking about that. All right, you're right, Andy, on that. That is a very good point.
I'm pretty sure a lot of people are under the assumption that Brooks is not coming back, though, that he's going to declare. He rose up to that RB1 status for the draft. I know that he's probably going to take a while to come. Take at least probably about half the season to come back from that ACL tear. But I mean, because it was so late in the year for him. But I mean, for a running back, if you're going to get that draft capital as a running back, you're definitely coming out.
But if Brooks goes back and does the same thing, just performs off the charts, did he raise his draft stock or did he just stay neutral? Like, was this year that the highest his will be and possibly drop down to a day 3 pick because of the injury? So it's like, you're not going to play for most of the season, so we're going to get you on the low, but hey, you'll be the guy once you're healthy? Or is it like, I'm going to go back and raise I think he's a day 2 or a second round pick. He was playing like great. He was playing arguably into the first. Yeah, right. So is that something to think about, where does he think, okay, I can do this again at Texas, and now we're in the SEC, I can go out there and excel even further, right? So that's a hard consideration, I think, for him. Does he go pro and make it big? Sure, awesome. But the 5th, 6th round capital is a hell of a lot different than what your 1st and 2nd are.
I still think he's probably a 2nd round guy, even with coming out this year with the injury. I mean, you were probably talking possible late 1st round for him, early 2nd round. I don't think the 2nd round grade changes a whole lot with him.
I think if he's a 3rd, I think he's a 3rd. I almost don't know if he's not a 3rd this year or late 3rd. And even if he comes back, if he's not a 3rd again, unless he plays out of his mind. And the only reason I say that is the NFL is just so downgrading what they want to do draft capital wise for running backs. And we've seen guys like Jonathan Taylor drop, mid-2nd, late 2nd round. I mean, a guy like Brooks come on knee injury. We've seen guys, people are willing to take, like, look at cornerback. We've seen a lot of cornerbacks that had ACL tears. Guys still took them in the 3rd round because they're like, oh, they could see what that guy could be with a 3rd round, and they're taking the discount that he might have been a late 1st, early 2nd. So to me, I think it's hard. I think Brooks might be a 3rd rounder this year if he comes out. I think he might be a 3rd rounder even if he comes back and plays well. I still think he might be a 3rd rounder next year, just the way the NFL is doing things right now.
I just think it's hard with a torn ACL to have any NFL team take a guy who has a torn ACL that you have to pay for his recovery to be a 2nd or a 3rd or even a 4th round pick. That's why I think he comes back, because if he were to leave, and let's just say he's a 4th round pick, okay, you're a 4th round pick, but if you come back and you show everyone that you're the same guy, you're the RB1 of the 25 class, and you're right back to being a late 1st round, early 2nd round guy. It just all depends on that pre-draft grade that he gets. Healthy running backs don't even get day 2 capital, so we're going to assume a guy with a torn ACL is going to get one. I just don't see that.
Well, I mean, I know it's a different position, but the Lions took basically what amounts to a backup quarterback with a torn ACL in the 3rd round last year, with Hendon Hooker. So, I mean, Brooks with the possibility of coming back, quarter of the way, 1/3 of the way into the season next year, working his way into some type of running back rotation. I could see 2nd round still. I mean,
to me, it's a 3rd or a 4th. If he goes out, I think teams are willing to give up a 3rd and take a year or half, year and a half to wait on a guy, or a 4th. But man, I can't see teams taking a running back with an ACL in the 2nd round. I just can't see it happening. I mean, not that it wouldn't, but to me, he wasn't a Bijan, who was a guy who was like, oh, we're probably taking this guy top 10 or 15, and then, he gets an ACL, and we'll get him in the 2nd. I just don't see that. To me, it's definitely, I think, 3rd round tops for me, and that's if a team loves him. And like Andy said, I think it's probably a 4th. Now, could he make his way into a 2nd next year? Yes, I think he could. I think I really think late 1st is a real difficult thing. Even if he's the number 1 back, I see a struggle to get to the late 1st for him, just to me. But, it'll be interesting to see what he does. Again, does it make a difference that 1 round, 2nd to 3rd round, you come out a year earlier, you start getting paid a year earlier, you get NFL rehab as opposed to college rehab, even though it is Texas. They are, tops of the tops. That one's he's gonna have to talk to fam on that one and see what the evaluators say. But I think if he's gonna get at least a 3rd round draft capital, I could see him coming out. I really could.
Here's also the thing, though. Let's look at the potential running back class this year compared to next year. This year, you're competing with Travion Henderson and Braylon Allen. Who are you competing with next year? You got potentially Rocket Sanders coming back. You got Nicholas Singleton, Katron Allen, Ollie Gordon. So I just think this year's class is probably better off for him to come out in, just because he's not competing with as many top end running backs as he would be next year.
I don't
that's
think
my
next
guess
year's.
Go ahead, Andy.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Brandon Allen's going to be a guy that's going to be all over the board. I think you're going to see teams that really love him and they think he fits their system and they're going to like him and maybe take him early. But I could see teams like, we're not taking him unless he gets to like the 4th or 5th round. I think you could see that their teams are like, he just doesn't fit our system. He's not the type of guy we play. And then you can see other teams that really like him. I even see him getting a hard time seeing him get that middle to late 2nd round draft capital. Jonathan Taylor was a way better prospect than Braylon Allen. And he even struggled to get that mid 2nd round, early 2nd round. So if you go out there and you look at it, and it's basically Trayvon Henderson, Allen, who you're going to have a lot of people on one way or the other, and then maybe Brooks. Maybe somebody takes a shot at Brooks so they feel like he fits their system better in the early to mid 3rd over Braylon Allen. So that's what I'm saying. Depending on who comes out and what happens, I really could see Brooks, and it seems crazy coming on ACL just to join when you're that young, as young as he is, to just jump into the league. But it might be one of those, he might be at his best chance at draft capital also because of the unknown. People love a young guy. The fact that he's young and has an ACL as opposed to a senior being an ACL, well, I think that helps him out big time.
And it's also the running back position where they, the older you are coming out, the less likely you're getting draft capital. Mm-hmm. Whereas the younger you are, Braylon Allen is 19 years old. He's 19. Mm-hmm. And if I'm the Titans in the 2nd round, I'm 100% taking Braylon Allen to replace Derrick Henry. Same running back. Exactly.
Yeah, and again, I think he fits. Like if you're a Titans team, you're eyeing him. But if you're the Dolphins, are you looking at Braylon Allen? If you're the Dolphins,
well, no, because you got. He
doesn't. But again, but he doesn't look like he fits that type of system at all. Like they want speedsters, they want quicker guys. So again, I think for him, do I think he could be a good NFL player? I absolutely do. But it comes down to what team he ends up on, as opposed to just this guy's going to be good. Put him on any team. He'll be a solid player, like everybody said, with like a Bijan. Like, hey, you put Bijan on anybody's team, he's going to be good. I don't think some of these other guys are in that type of position. I think they got to go to the right place and the right coaching staff for them to really hit their potential.
I know for Braylon Allen, let's do an impromptu heat check on him. Tommy, he's your RB1, right?
Yes.
SC, he's your RB2, right? Justin, where do you have him?
I originally had him coming in the year as my RB, I think 4, if I remember correctly, when we did our RB show. I had him as my RB4. He's a guy I like because the age. I thought they would throw the ball to him more, which I think helped that he got a little bit of receiving aspect this year. I think that helped him. But it depends on who comes out of this class. But again, I like a lot of guys more than him, but they're not going to come out this year. The guys I like more than him. So I think he actually has a shot to be a top 2 or 3 guy RB-wise in this draft, just because I'm not overwhelmed by the guys coming out this year. I really am not. And so I think the age helps him, that he's young. I think the fact that he actually had some receiving prowess this year, even though he didn't do much when he caught the balls, they were all short passes, but he did get some catches, I think helps out. But again, it feels like he really seems like he has to fit a specific system to me. And that's what hurts his draft capital for me, is there's going to be a handful of teams that really like him. He's our RB1, but there's going to be a whole lot of teams that are probably out on him unless he just completely drops to them. And they're like, oh man, at this point, we got to take him.
Yeah, for me, before the Brooks injury, I had Braylon Allen as the RB4 in the class, not counting Raheem Sanders. I'm just not sold on Braylon Allen. I just see AJ Dillon. There's just so many times out there when I see him run and he just gets stopped too easily. I mean, I know he's 19, he's going to be 20 come draft time. So there's still a lot of growth, a lot of improvement, a lot of maturity, a lot of strength that he's going to gain. But just from what I've seen on tape, I don't know. I see AJ Dillon.
To me, it's really hard to look at Braylon Allen and not see Derrick Henry. Same size, 6'2", 240 plus. Same running style. They kind of have that kind of upright type of running, and they're very violent at the point of attack. Both have a sick stiff arm. Both kind of same type of pass catchers. Little swing passes out of the backfield, not gonna go a long way, but still gonna get you something. I just see Derrick Henry 2.0 when I look at Braylon Allen, and I mean, to me, with him being 19 years old and going to be 20 in to start the season next year, I just think that there's way too much potential to be able to pass up there.
But does his age hurt him? Because we saw last year with Izzy Ibukanda, he had all the talent out there, and he was 19 and 20, and he didn't go until late in the fifth. That age could actually hurt him.
Here's my thing: is I think he's more. I don't think he's as much Derrick Henry as I think he's like a poor man's Najee Harris, honestly. And I like Najee better than him. And Najee obviously came out as an older prospect, but I like Najee's profile better. And you see how many people are hating on Najee and what he's done. And I actually think Najee's a lot better player than Braylon Allen. So that's what worries to me is like if he is struggling and people don't like what Najee's doing, I know he's quite a bit older when he came out than Braylon Allen. That's what has me worried. Our team's going to look at that and go, oh, did he really fit the Steelers system well? Was he the guy to go? And then you always have that system. You always have that back of your mind where you go, okay, well, we took Najee Harris in the first round, but then we got Jalen Warren as an undrafted free agent. So do we want this guy? Or are we going to take our chances taking 2 or 3 undrafted free agents and see if one of those guys are even 70% of the player, 75% of the player? I just see there are a lot of NFL teams that kind of are moving that direction. In my mind, is like there's a lot of running backs I like last year's draft, way more than I like in this year's draft, to be honest with you. And those guys were dropping to 4th, 5th, 6th rounds. So I just don't have a lot. It feels like, what was the year where, was it Steven Jackson was the only guy that went in the first and like no one went very early in that year? It seems like one of those years where RBs are just going to plummet in the draft this next year. I just don't see a lot of teams taking big swings because they just don't love him. Like that guy's all right. If he gets to me, I'll take him. But I don't see anybody making moves to like move ahead of someone to steal one of those guys. And that's what has me worried as far as draft capital wise.
That's fair. Another thing, a couple more guys I'm wanting to get into real quick. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on them. But, a few wide receivers we got here. Really, really high on a couple of these guys, on 3 of them. And then one guy I am just kind of putting in the refrigerator, But the 3 guys I'm extremely high on: Ted McMillan. He's possibly the wide receiver 1 for 2025. That's going to be a really, really good wide receiver class, especially top end. When you look at Luther Burden and Evan Stewart and Ted McMillan. And then you got Brian Thomas Jr. He has been on fire this year. He leads the country in touchdown receptions, I believe. And you look at that at that size and frame he has, and the ability to make Jaden Daniels look good. Which we've all been in agreement that Jaden Daniels is not a NFL caliber quarterback. He just the wide receivers are making him look good. Guess what? One of those receivers is Brian Thomas Jr. And then another guy, Adonai Mitchell. To me, he's George Pickens. Guy kind of long, rangy, able to go up and catch that 50-50 ball. To me, he is basically what George Pickens is. And then a guy that I have cooled off substantially on is Adam Randall for Clemson. He's just not developing. I know he had the ACL injury, but he came back last year. Everybody thought going into this year was going to be a big year for him. Just hadn't been. Haven't really seen anything from him to make me think that he has a big NFL future.
That's great, man. That wide receiver 1 spot, that's spicy. I think he could definitely be that wide receiver 3, but 1, I mean, he has the talent for sure. I think I feel like I saw a rumor that was just going around that Evan Stewart may be leaving A&M. I don't know if that was after the coaching change or anything, but
he did not go to their last game, so he was not around. So there hasn't been talk about whether he's in or transfer or anything, but there is rumors about what's happening because he was not with their team at their last game.
There you go. Well, so then the speculations came about that.
You'd also have to think with Mike Elko coming in that he has a lot of work to do to win Evan Stewart over.
Yeah. And so, I mean, a great talent, phenomenal. The underrated guy I'm looking at in Arizona is Jacob Cowing. I think Jacob Cowing played a big part in just making sure McMillan looked great, getting some wide receivers off because he's faster and quicker than he is. Brian Thomas Jr., fantastic prospect. I think what you said with Jaden Daniels, he was hitting him on the money, but you have a 6'4" receiver like Brian Thomas. I mean, you throw it up, he's catching over everybody, really. When it comes to Adonai Mitchell, there was times he looked better than Wardy to me at Texas. There was times where I was like, wait, he's actually the wide receiver 1 here and not Wardy at all. The comparison to George Pickens, that's fair, but I think he's a better route runner. I think he's more crisp in his route running when he needs to get open. But he is someone that can go out there and win that contested catch. He has that strength to do so, and he has a little bit of finesse to him. When it comes to Adam Randall, man, that's really just Clemson. I'm just down on everyone that's at Clemson outside of some of their defensive guys. But with the wide receivers, the running backs, I mean, I'm not big on Will Shipley. I know Andy, that's, one of his favorites there. But then, even Kate Klubnik. I mean, the question with Clemson is, we talked about it. Is it Dabo? Is it his time to be like, all right, that Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence era is over. And it was the quarterbacks that made me look great, and I don't have that quarterback anymore, so it's time to move on. So everyone in Clemson on that offensive side is really in the fridge for me there. But the other 3, I mean, and great. Ted McMillan, I love that wide receiver 1 talk, but I have him at wide receiver 3 right now in that class.
I've been slower to move up Ted. I still question his overall athletic ability. I mean, he's like 6'6". He does have that volleyball background. I have him as wide receiver 5 right now for the 25 class. I'm fine for people having him as the wide receiver 3. I think Evan Stewart is just class above everyone else for the 25 class. As far as with Adam Randall, I would hold out hopes that he transfers. I know he had off-season surgery and he came in around 240 pounds, so he's been playing catch up. But yeah, he just hasn't been consistent. He just hasn't been it, but no one in Clemson has been it there. It's just a mess. So I would try to buy low on him in hopes that he transfers out.
Yeah, for me, I've been a Tet guy all along. I had a CFF team with Tet, Neighbors, and freaking Luther Burden. I was like, why isn't that a C2C team? I'm like, oh my God, I love these guys. I think he's really good, but I think it's one of those things. I think he's been better because Cowing's there doing a lot of things that he doesn't do, which allows him to do the stuff that he's really good at, which is running deep down the field, catching jump balls, doing those things. So I like him. I think he's going to, even though I'm super high on him, I think he's going to have to improve his route running and figure out some ways. Because I think the athleticism, as far as speed wise and stuff, is something that's going to have to be looked at, of whether he can actually, burn, NFL corners, whether he's going to be able to consistently do that or not. So that's my hold up on him, even though I like him an absolute ton. I think he's got a ton of upside. Brian Thomas.
All that, though, was also Mike Evans' criticism coming out, too. And he,
exactly.
every year he's been in the league, he's gone over 1,000 yards.
I agree. I think he definitely can be that type of player. Look and see what he can do. I think he's obviously going to have to keep improving. He definitely has that upside. But we're going to see it. Is he the guy that ends up being that guy? Is he a Mike Evans type where he just goes deep and you throw it up and he makes a play over a guy most of the time? And I think he definitely has that possibility. So I like him. Brian Thomas, to me, feels like he has the potential to be like the steal of the draft eventually. Like, he's a guy's like, everybody's gonna look at Neighbors. Neighbors was spectacular, and I love Neighbors. I think, to me, he's my wide receiver 2 in this draft class. I saw a mock that had him going to the Colts the other day, and I about peed myself. I was like, oh my God, they got Neighbors. I would lose it. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'd love to see that. But I feel like Brian Thomas is just gonna be, I think he's going to be really good at the NFL level. I just feel like he's got the body, he's got the size, makes the catch. And I am going to ask you guys later about Jaden Daniels, because I want to talk about this for just a couple of minutes. I know it's going to be a huge thing, but I really like Thomas. I just think he's a guy, because of Neighbors, he's going to get overlooked. But man, if you put him on the right team in the NFL, I just think he has a chance to be really, really good. Mitchell, like you talked about George Pickens, I think, like you said, he's a little bit better route runner. I like Mitchell a lot. Think he's got a high upside there. Randall, again, like everybody else said, Clemson, you just, right now, you don't know what you're getting with those guys. So it's a little iffy to me. But I do want to talk about Jaden Daniels, only because I am seeing so much talk about him now being a top 5 to 10 pick across draft boards, and people that I like legit follow and I like kind of trust what they say are like legit in like he's a top 10 guy. And I'm like, I am shocked every time I see it. I'm shocked that everyone is like, yeah. I'm like, man, did he have an absolutely unbelievable hell of a season? 100%. The guy had a magical year. We've seen a lot of players have magical years in college that never had any business being a pro quarterback or wide receiver or running back. I just want to get your guys' thoughts, because I felt like we've been on the same page, all of us, most of the year, that we like him as a college player. We think everyone around him's made him better. The fact that his running ability is nice has made him look, more explosive because of the running ability. I am blown away at how much top 5, top 10, top 15 picks I'm seeing everywhere in these mocks. Have you guys seen the same thing? Are you guys going like this seems a little crazy to me? It seems like the Heisman, nobody was talking about Ken Dorsey as a top 10 pick, even though he was winning the Heisman, or anybody, all these other quarterbacks on these number 1 teams. It just seems like people have just gone over the top of the athletic profile and the 1,000 yards rushing and the touchdowns. I mean, Charlie Ward was a freaking amazing college quarterback too, but nobody was talking about Charlie Ward being top of the top heap as an NFL quarterback either. So that it just kind of has me a little bit shocked.
Yeah, to me, Jaden Daniels, I think he's going to win the Heisman. He is having a very special year. A lot of that is aided by those 2 big time wide receivers he has. But to me, I think I look at Jaden Daniels and I think a less intelligent Josh Dobbs. Doesn't have an overly special arm. His receivers are having to make plays for him. And he is much more of a athlete and a runner than he is a slinger. You know, he's not Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson can stay in the pocket, can make all the throws. He's not Lamar Jackson. But to me, he is a less intelligent Joshua Dobbs, mainly because of the hits he goes out and consistently takes. He's going to get himself hurt in the NFL doing that. He may be able to get away with it, playing McNeese State on during week 4. But he's not going to be able to do that playing against, even the Arizona Cardinals. He's not going to be able to do that playing against, even playing against bad defenses in the NFL. They're going to light him up.
But before he was the one that got lit up by Florida State, right? That was
yeah.
Okay.
Multiple times this year.
Make sure I'm remembering that. If he goes, I use Tankathon when I reference drafts. They have a good 3-round mock draft, and they have him as the 7th pick to the Bucks right now. If he goes top 15, he's gonna be labeled my bust of it. I don't think he's a top quarterback. You see it all the time, special seasons in college, and just go out there and you just don't have it. I mean, if anything, it's like he's a poor man's RG3. I loved RG3. He had a great season, but he necessarily didn't translate into what we wanted him to at that next level. And I think Jaden Daniels is going to do that same thing. It's going.
And RG3 had a big arm.
He did. He was smarter too. I feel like he had a good chance of him. I mean, the only reason why you argued him not as QB1 is because Andrew Luck was there, right? But with Daniels, the defenses are different, like they are in the SEC, right? When the SEC, Pac-12 defenses are different. They're different in the NFL as well. They'll pick up on you, and they are gonna hit you. And him being so aggressive and trying to be Superman and get it all done, he's gonna get that lit up. It's gonna be one of those welcomes to the NFL. Think about like Reggie Bush when he got lit up. I think it was by like Brian Dawkins or something. So it's something where I don't see the next level excitement. I know people are excited about him, and that's great. But I mean, Trey Lance had that arm, and he hasn't been anything. I just don't feed into it. His wide receivers are phenomenal. And that's something I always stress when you look at these quarterbacks. Are they good and they have good wide receivers, or are they okay and their wide receivers are making them look better? And I think he's in that situation. You have two of arguably the top 10 wide receivers in this class on your team, and they go out there and they go get it. There's sometimes where you see him underthrow the ball and they have to go back to get it. There's sometimes where he overthrows them and they have to jump high to get the ball. There's just times where he's not accurate on the money. The wide receivers make him look better. And I don't, if they give him in the first round, a team's making a mistake.
All right. I'm going to play devil's advocate, but I want to preface this by saying I don't believe this at all. And I have a 4th round grade at best on him. Okay. So I don't want anyone to think this is what I think. What if he does a Anthony Richardson at the combine, lights it up, runs a 4.4, has a great pro day, just airs it out, wows them, and say he's a top 5 pick? In your super flex rookie drafts, if you have that 2nd or 3rd pick, are you taking him?
Well, I mean,
I on him.
I think the hypothetical is a big if, because he doesn't have the arm Anthony Richardson has, not even close to having the same type of arm. If you're looking at somebody who's going to do an Anthony Richardson at the combine, it's going to be Joe Milton, not Jaden Daniels. So because I mean they're just two totally different types of quarterbacks. Jaden Daniels doesn't have an NFL arm.
I think if that happens, he goes out there and blows out the combine. There's someone in your league that is super excited. They're like, "Oh, you gotta go get Jaden Daniels. Look at this." So you do what you can to trade back when he's there.
That's what I was just gonna say. He would be my guy I'm looking at, knowing that I knew someone else in my league, or at least 1 or 2 other guys in my league, loved him, and looking to say, "Hey, I'm gonna take him where I can move him for other pieces and do stuff." I just had this conversation with somebody on X, and the question was like, I brought up, Neighbors and Thomas making them look so good. And someone was like, well, didn't CJ, all those guys that make CJ Stroud look good? I'm like, they did. But if you look the film, CJ Stroud was dropping stuff in a bucket. He was making the throws. Those guys were awesome. but he was also putting it on the money to those guys, doing everything he could, making the plays and helping those guys look even better. As Neighbors and Thomas are literally making plays for Daniels. Like if he had other wide receivers, there's a lot of touchdowns and a lot of yards he would not have if he didn't have those two guys that have made some unreal plays for him, because those guys are so good. And again, I'm not trying to hate on Daniel's season because he's had a magical year. He has had a magical year, but he also is lucked out in that they have a bad defense. They've been in shootouts every week. That always is a help when it comes to stats. I mean, we saw it in the Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was, everyone talked about it, clear-cut best player in the country. Was he even in the Heisman talk? Barely, because he was on a team that didn't put up a ton of points. They played tough defense. He played solid quarterback, did just enough to get him wins, but they weren't in those every week 40, 35 shootouts. And so, and in college, and we love it in C2C, we love it in CFF. We love stats. We love stats. And so guys that pile up stats are going to get your attention more. And Daniels has the best stats. It's just the way it is. He's got the best stats. But does that make him the best player and the best quarterback? To me, no. He's not the best player and the best quarterback, but he's got the best stats and he's been on a fairly good team. I mean, LSU's been solid this year. So I just see Neighbors and Thomas making more plays to help him than like when I saw with Stroud. I saw Stroud putting the ball right where Marvin Harrison Jr. needed it, right where Olave needed it, right where Garrett Wilson needed it. He was putting the ball on the money as opposed to waiting for his wideouts to bail him out and make an unbelievable catch on a throw that was 3 or 4 yards off target. That's the difference for me. And like Tommy said, I just don't see the accuracy and arm strength from Daniels. I just don't see it. In AR, I mean, I wasn't a big AR guy. I had to say I'm in on him with the Colts now. But again, he's a project. But he's a guy I think has all those tools that if you're going to take a chance on somebody, he's the type of guy I want to take a chance on because he has all the attributes. Now, is he ever going to put it all together and be great? That's a big if. And the Colts knew that when they took him. But am I taking that same chance on Daniels? I don't think so. I just don't think so. Not in my mind. I'm not.
In the case of I was just saying, right now I have like the 104 in one of my leagues. And so if he goes in the top 10, I mean, I'm doing everything like he had to trade back, maybe get 2 firsts for it. Someone's heavy, maybe a first and second. I right now predict that I'll get Neighbors there. But I'll move back and get Franklin and Odunze, or Franklin and McMillan or McCarthy, even, over Jaden Daniels. So,
yeah, I would say it's a stretch, in my opinion, to say that Jaden Daniels is a top 8 quarterback in this draft, in this specific draft, much less a top 8 pick overall.
Doesn't he feel like a Raiders pick? I don't know why. I feel like he's a Raiders pick. I feel like the Raiders are going to end up loving him. They're going to convince themselves that they got to have him, and they love the fact that he was the Heisman winner, and they're going to take him, and it's going to be a disaster. I don't know why I get that feeling. I feel like the Raiders would be the team that would be all over him.
Raiders or Jets, because they're both basically the same.
Man, if I'm the Jets, though, do I think he's that much better than Zach Wilson? Like, legitimately?
Wilson has a bigger arm.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I guess that's my point. I mean, I think Wilson actually has better traits, and I don't like Zach Wilson, and I wasn't a Zach Wilson fan when he came out, but I think he's got better traits than Daniels.
We do actually have a comment up here. You were talking about Reggie Bush getting lit up. Who'd you say it was?
I saw
Brian Dawkins.
Yeah.
Felix Sharp actually says it was Lito Shepherd.
There you go.
Thank you for the correction there, Felix. We appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Felix. Shout out to C2C. We everybody here plays it. We love the format, love the content. We appreciate you, Felix. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for tonight's show. We could go on and on and on about all this stuff. But that's going to do it for tonight's show. For more content, go check out dynastyprosfootball.com. Andy puts out multiple articles a week. SC does his IDDP article. Also subscribe to the channel, like on YouTube, give us holler at us on X. You see all of our handles here. Give us comments on YouTube. Also, we'll be happy to interact with you. But that is going to do it for tonight's show. We appreciate everybody tuning in. For Justin Taylor, SC Romero, and Andy Pham, I am Tommy Harvey, and we will see you all next time.